there is a question here on the screen that's kind of an eternal question. Why some Democrats worry? Now, it's a trope. A lot of people will say they're always worried. But I will say, if you've been paying attention to social media or reporting on CNN, Democrats seem particularly worried now. Why? One man, as we say, has the answer. CNN's chief senior data reporter, Harry Enten, is here. So, why?
Why? What is with all of this bedwetting among Democrats? Maybe it's an eternal problem, but let's take a look here. These are, of course, the Great Lake battleground states, the states we've been focusing in on. If Kamala Harris wins these three, she most likely gets to 270 electoral votes. Take a look 3 weeks ago. Harris was ahead by 2 in Pennsylvania, 2 in Wisconsin, 3 in Michigan. Look at where we are today. The race is even tighter than it was. Today, it's a 1-point advantage in Pennsylvania, 1 in Wisconsin, 1 in Michigan. Look, that's limited movement. But in a year in which this race has been so static, if we're talking 1-point movement, 1-point movement, 2-point movements, and we see movements in all three, this is the type of thing that, at least in the public polling, makes Democrats worried. And I think that the public polling in this case is reflected in some of that internal polling, some of that reporting that suggests that these Great Lake battleground states have certainly tightened a lot, where at this point they are way too close to call.
It is what you call a trend.
It is
when
a
you
trend.
See something like this over several states. When you compare this to 4 years ago, what does it look like?
Yeah, so let's take a look, and we're going to look at an average across these 3 states, right? Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, an average on October 11th. What do you see? Well, if you look 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton was way out in front in an average of these 3. She was up by 8. You go 4 years ago, Joe Biden was up by an average of 7 points across these 3 Great Lake battleground states. You come today, it's just a 1-point advantage for Kamala Harris across these 3 Great Lake battleground states. So Kamala Harris, at least in the polling, is doing considerably worse than Biden or Clinton. And of course, Clinton lost in all 3 of these states, and Joe Biden barely won in all 3 of these states. So when you see Harris up by just a point across these 3, I think that this is really the type of thing that gets Democrats really to worry, John, because the simple fact is Kamala Harris is doing considerably worse than either Biden or Clinton was.
Yeah, at this number, what you start hoping for is somehow that the polls
are actually right this time around?
Are right this time and doing a better job, and that's a little bit of a thin reed to base your hope on. There may be some other reasons in general why Democrats are more worried.
Yeah, so I think it just comes down to the fact that Democrats are more worried about a Donald Trump presidency than Trump supporters are about a Kamala Harris presidency. So angry if the opposing candidate wins. 52% of Harris voters say they'd be angry if Donald Trump won, versus just 42% of Trump voters who say they'd be angry if Kamala Harris was. So I think this is more of a bigger, larger picture. It's not just that the polls are tightening. I think it's just that Democrats, John, are more worried in general about a Donald Trump presidency than the reverse in this particular situation.
Harry Enten, thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
Have a great weekend.
You as well.
Kate?
So Kamala Harris is continuing her campaign media blitz, taking part in a town hall hosted by Univision for undecided Hispanic voters. Listen.
When I am elected president, I will bring back that border security bill, and I will sign it into law and do the work of focusing on what we must do to have an orderly and humane pathway to earn citizenship for hardworking people. I think it is a false choice for people who would say you do one or the other. I believe we must do both. I believe we can do both.
Joining me right now is Gen Z activist, social media influencer, Carlos Eduardo Espina. He has 10 million followers on TikTok. I'm sure it's more than that if I check back. You can correct me, Carlos. And also to speaking slot at the DNC, which is the last time that we spoke was right before you had your big moment on stage at the DNC. The New York Times headline on this event, on this town hall event with Univision, was that it was Harris walks fine line on immigration at Univision town hall, which is what you really kind of saw in that moment, in that soundbite that we just played. But in your experience, in your view, in what you hear in your interactions with your followers, is walking a fine line the right thing to do you think?
Well, in my personal experience, I actually believe it's not. I think the Harris campaign needs to be a lot more on the forefront of proposing a different vision than Donald Trump on immigration. You see it yesterday in the town hall. Of the 10 questions, 3 of them were in one way or another related to immigration. You had the daughter who lost her mother, the guy who has friends who are on DACA, and then you had other issues on immigration, and they're all highlighting, right, the humane aspect of it. And I think that's something really important to lean on. And obviously, border security is really important and it needs to be addressed. But I would like to see a lot more of the leaning into the humane side, DACA recipients, those who are married to U.S. citizens, those who have been here for decades, and really highlighting that contrast between Harris and Trump. And I think she's doing a good job at times, but I would like to see more of it, honestly.
That is interesting, because I was going to ask you, what you're getting at is, as it's been described, the shift that people have seen in Kamala Harris's position since she's gotten into the campaign. I mean, Harris is now pledging to impose even more restrictive immigration, asylum, and border policies than we've seen really, before from Biden, or that she's talked about before. And in doing so, she's gone from framing herself as an advocate for undocumented immigrants to kind of touting herself as talking a lot about being a former border prosecutor and how she's going to be stronger on the border than Donald Trump is. Do you think she's trying to win the middle? She's trying to not turn off, if you want to say, like, Republican voters on this issue, if I'm going to say with broad strokes. But do you think that hurts her?
I'm not necessarily sure if it hurts her. I'm not a pollster. I can tell you what I see day in and day out in the community. And when I meet people, I mean, every single day that I'm out, people recognize me from social media, people comment on my videos. And it's very few of the people who are, the forefront of immigration is the issue of the border for them. I mean, obviously people care about it. They're concerned about certain aspects, but I don't think they're concerned about it as much as they are, an immigration status for their mother, like the lady we heard at the town hall yesterday, or for their spouses or for their children or whoever it may be that they really care about. And that's why I believe, it is really important for the Harris campaign to lean more into that pro-immigrant, especially focusing on those who are already here. And you can do that without necessarily, and I think she recognized that, compromising border security and all that narrative around it. But yeah, I would like to see more of, talking about those who have been here 10, 15, 20 years working, paying taxes, contributing. What is the plan to help them? And their families as well. I think that would really win her some points on people who maybe right now are undecided.
And what do you, and it might be hard to kind of encapsulate quickly, but what do you think is the top issue? Is it immigration, or maybe just beyond immigration, that you are hearing from your, more than 10 million followers on TikTok, many of whom you would assume are Latino voters?
Yeah, well, obviously immigration is a big topic, but there's more to it. There's the economy, there's democracy. There's a lot of different aspects, and I think the biggest thing I've noticed is a lot of people are voting this time around, not so much based on policy, but more on personality. And the more they get to meet Kamala Harris, the more they understand, that she's a human. She's compassionate. I think that's why that town hall yesterday was really passionate. You are really important. You would never see, I think, Donald Trump give such a compassionate answer or really understand people's suffering. So I think, one of the big skepticisms right now is people just don't know enough about her. So doing these kind of events, appearing more, on Univision, Telemundo, on other platforms where Spanish speakers and Latinos in general are, I think can really help, break that divide that people right now feel like they don't know who they are and they do know who Trump is. And for some reason, a lot of people seem to be attracted to Donald Trump.
Yeah, she has less support among Latino voters in recent polling than Biden had 4 years ago. How that is going to pan out come exit polls this time around, we'll see together. It's good to see you, Carlos, again. Thank you for coming in.